Yeah, kind of a response video to Dario. Also, the one and all guy. I'll post links. The virtual reality guy with the 67 parts, which I haven't watched all of yet, and I really got to get around to that. But anyway, he made 4-5 videos. I don't know, something. That's what he posted anyway. I don't know how long a period of time they were made over. Anyway, raising some of these points about what, how much desire or pleasure is worth what pain kind of thing, trying to deal with that equation. Dario's video is somewhat on the same subject. I think in the future I'm going to try to make some 3-minute or 2-minute videos and take like each piece of this thing a bite at a time. Let's say there's 10 segments to this whole logical argument, and see if we can do it that way and exchange comments that are more concise, because it really is tough to respond to 40 minutes of video. That takes about 180 minutes, and then you get into, the permutations just aren't healthy. So anyway, Dario's just basically saying that, yeah, I mean, I can sort of know it subjectively. I can look at somebody else's life and say, shit, I don't want to live that life. But he can't say it, intellectually. He can't write an equation that proves that their life is poop. Or that it's not worth living. Certainly on the extremes, I'll still argue we can know the extreme. Okay, we can know lives that are, wow, it seems pretty good, and we can certainly know ones that are bad enough where mercy comes into what we think we need to do, that something actually has to be done about it. It's so bad. I mean, we can all figure out that you put a suffering animal to sleep. You don't prolong their suffering. You don't continue their life. So you apply your judgment, and you're pretty certain that it's a good judgment and the right judgment. And it's not a subjective thing. It's not something your emotions are making the decision. You're just dealing with the reality that there's this suffering taking place, and something should be done about it. And if it can't be fixed, then it's got to be ended. And it's sort of a rational equation. So anyway, but getting to the meat of this again, the point that seems to be overlooked all the time is the point that evolution has built us to desire, which completely breaks the whole idea of a human being subjectively having good judgment, because desire perverts. It creates an artificial attractiveness. And even the idea of the pleasure, I don't even know if part of desire isn't so much that we're saying we want to get to a pleasure. We just want to get into the game where we think we're getting close, because that feels good. The closer you get, the better you feel. And that's just such obviously an evolutionary thing, where it would tend to just make you want to migrate in a direction, move. I mean, you could almost think about like the first organisms. It was really good for them to, there'd be lots of food maybe when the sun was out, but they could only take so much ultraviolet exposure, and then that would destroy the organism. So they had to have some mechanism to get them out of the sun, let's say, or something like that. So they can create a sensation that just says bad, and the bad light keeps blinking inside the organism. This is not good. This is not good. Do something. Do something. Move whatever you can. Change something. Change. And until it gets into a shady position, and then that stops, and the organism says, relax, calm. You don't have to do anything anymore. No panic, and no more pain. You can see how something like that would be an easy mechanism for controlling behavior. But anyway, so again, it's just going to be a point that's ignored, but our perception of value, the thing that the pleasure mechanisms, are exaggerated. That's the addiction. And so people keep arguing that I'm discounting pleasure. I'm not discounting it. I'm not eliminating it from the equation. I'm just saying that we have to understand it has diminished value. The value we think it has isn't its real value. And again, I just make this argument so many different ways, but people say I make bad analogies. Well, whatever, who cares? They're analogies. Again, I'll go back to like the race thing. If you knew the human race was just from now on just going to be Muslims, all right, Muslims, and they would kill anybody who was an atheist or anybody who was a Christian or anybody who believed anything else but Muslimness, and that's what the whole history of human beings would be from now on. Would you say, yeah, it's great to have human beings on planet Earth? You know, I mean, I personally say shit no, because they're not going to have my values, not going to appreciate anything I think consciousness makes consciousness, if it has any hope of redeeming itself or having any value. The only value it has is in learning the truth and doing all these other things that are important, and that culture's not going to ever do that. So I'd say fuck it. You know, plain and simple. That's trapping consciousness in that stupidity and that ignorance would be a crime. So, you know, that's sort of, but I'm giving you a half rational argument. It's not a completely subjective argument. The subjective part might be that, yes, it's not going to appreciate what I appreciate, and therefore I can't see any value. But that's almost making my argument for me. I mean, because in all things, it is just our seeing the value. And the seeing of the value is the illusion. And again, I'll make the argument. I can give cholera to any one of you, all right? And only a tiny, tiny, minute percentage of the human race would say, ah, gee, that's a fun ride, the cholera ride. Yeah, I want to do that again, okay? It's always going to be bad. It's always going to be nasty. And yes, it might be nastier in certain individuals who are less capable of dealing with pain and suffering, but the bottom line is it's going to suck for everyone. Where in our positive pleasure moments, they can be made out of shit. I mean, people can get deliriously happy. Oh, I'm going to make a little pair of socks for my little Dario. You know, I'm a little grandma and I'm going to make socks for Dario. And that's a very pleasurable, joyful experience. But it's, you know, it's made out of nothing. There's no real value there. And so you're going to, you know, if we're going to weigh these things, I just don't get it. It just doesn't, the only thing that keeps people moving forward is that desire thing, that sense of unfinishedness, that sense of incompleteness. We don't transition well. We don't like losing, okay, so we're going to fight for something. These are all psychological traps that exist, and they can't be used as a rational argument to justify our preposterous evaluations, which essentially are, yes, we will risk breaking a few kids' necks every year so they can play pee-wee jerky football. It's an idiotic equation. It's just completely nutcase. But the only reason why it's acceptable is because we have this artificial value that we've placed on this nonsense pleasure derived in this idiotic competition that they could have pleasure doing something entirely different. It's just a psychological bullshit. But even the idea of pleasure, like I said, it's just such a it's a small thing. And that's how nature fools us. It gives us a tiny bit of this thing in our whole life, this true satisfaction, true completeness, actualization, whatever word you want to use. We achieve that for a few moments in our life here and there. And it seduces us with that tiny bit to keep chasing the carrot for the rest of our lives. I mean, the hunger, I mean, even the word hunger. You know, how can you have an intellectual conversation where you're going to tell me that I'm undervaluing something that we obviously have a natural obsession with because it's been built into us, hunger for it. So, I mean, if we're going to evaluate the true value of the carrot, it's, you know, versus the scars made with the stick, you know, the ones that are real is the stick. The carrot is the illusion. And you keep pretending that somehow this little bit of pleasure has a real value. But no, I mean, if you really cut it up, if you cut life into its little pieces and you put the pieces on the scales, and, you know, the real hard negatives and whatever the positive, the feeling of satisfaction, regardless of why you got it, but just that feeling, there's no way the two balance. So, I mean, I would imagine, I can't make an equation in my head that makes any sense out of it. So when I say the only real positive is to eliminate a negative, and then that's why this is a zero-sum game, is because that's the only thing of real value, is erasing negatives, eliminating negatives, preventing negatives. That's the real positive. This pleasure crap is just is mush. It's illusionary. It only has value because of the artificial built-in desire, our addiction mechanism. So again, we're back to the addiction argument. No one's really touching that. We are addicted, and that definitely changes and distorts and perverts our judgment. So I really think there is an intellectual, logical equation here. It's really hard to define because we have to do it through our subjective perception. But I think it's there. It's just hard to do. And there's nothing wrong with conceding that it's hard to do. But I think we shouldn't be fooled by its slipperiness, that somehow it can never be grabbed. It can. There's a trick to it. Okay, it's like the Rubik's Cube. I mean, really tough at first when everybody got them. Oh, this is impossible. And then once you figured out how to do it, yeah, well, it's, you know, really easy. So, I guess that's enough of a video. Yeah, there's my catchphrase. I'm out of time anyway, so till next time. Hopefully I'll try to do a few short, really to the point videos and see if that works.